Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Road to Financial Freedom, a podcast that allows experts to share their stories and secrets to unlocking their financial independence. This podcast is brought to you by CamaPlan, a self-directed IRA administrator in Ambler, PA, that is focused on educating investors with different ways to grow their retirement savings faster through alternative investments. So as you know, I'm Jess Jones. I am one of the team members here at CamaPlan. I'm also one of the hosts of this podcast. And today I am over the moon to be introducing you to another host of our podcast, today's guest and one of CamaPlan's original founders, Carl. Thanks for being here, Carl Fischer. How are you?
Great, Jess. Thanks for the nice introduction. And I'm really happy to be here today.
Yeah, great to see you, but hear you. How have you been since we started working from home? What have you been up to?
I've been up to social distancing. I'm in the 65-year-old death category, so I have been being careful and making sure I limit my exposure to anybody else out there. One of the good things I can do is fish with other people in the house and ride on the boat. So that's good. And I drove to Florida so that we could be out in the sun and the sea, because I remember a science class in third grade where they said the sun and salt water kills a lot of germs. So just going back to the
Oh,
basics.
that's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like you're getting a lot of R&R time in, which is awesome. That's good for you. So we'll just dive right in. Just tell us some more about your background, where you grew up, where you went to school, what you chose to study, and then how you got involved in real estate investing and eventually in self-directed IRAs.
Geez, that's a lot of things to tell you. Let me kind of explain where we start. I was born in New Jersey. My mom and dad are both from New Jersey. However, my mom and dad moved down to Florida, Fort Lauderdale, when I was 2 years old and right after my other brother was born. I was basically raised in Fort Lauderdale. I went to grade school and high school in Fort Lauderdale, Cardinal Gibbons High School. I then went up to New York to Cornell University, and I was studying engineering. I picked engineering only because one of my counselors said, "Hey, you're good in math. You should be an engineer." I picked Cornell because it had a lot of different colleges. So if I wasn't sure if I liked engineering, I didn't have to change schools, but I could change colleges. Really nice campus, and it moved me from Florida to upstate New York, which, by the way, was a real shock. You
Oh,
go
yeah.
from sun and sand to gray and cold, and I'd never really seen snow before I'd gone up there. So it was very interesting from that aspect. But my mom and dad were doing real estate in Florida, and their mom and dad were doing real estate in their lives. So basically, I learned real estate from them. And I was actually doing it in college when I would go look at houses to go skiing with. I would generally rent the house, and from doing all the work, I would make everybody else pay. So I just naturally fell into the real estate world because I worked with my dad. I saw the mailbox money. I saw the rents. I saw the work he had to do, et cetera, with it. But one of the good things I liked about it was he could take a summer vacation, you know what I mean, the whole summer vacation. So we would go back up to the Jersey Shore a lot of summers to vacation. So I liked that lifestyle, and I didn't realize how nice that was because, all the time you're in school, you get the summer vacations. Once you
Mhm.
graduate from college, the companies give you 2 weeks, and that was really hard for me to live with. And I said, "Oh," and that's what made me start to think I need financial freedom. And where we were, I was launching rockets at Kennedy Space Center, and they expected me there, that we didn't stop launching in the summer so I could take a vacation. So it was an eye-opening experience. And one of the things I realized was owning real estate helped me keep more of my earned income from working there. And it also created some passive income. So that's kind of how I got started in real estate. And I never looked back. I was 22 when I graduated, and I had my first piece of property when I was 23 after
Wow, that's
paying off
awesome.
yeah, after paying off my college loans.
Yeah, that is awesome to hear, especially because I am coming at you from my mom's house. So that's very cool to hear that you were doing that when you were 23.
You have to understand, I come from a pretty big family, and my mom and dad made it clear to us, go to school and then get out.
Mhm.
That's the best way you can help out the family.
Yeah, you're
So,
the oldest of all your siblings too, right?
yep, yeah, there was 12 of us, so
Yeah.
kind of imperative. Plus, it gave me the freedom that I wanted, living on my own.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. First year out of school, I lived by myself and then came back home to make some more money and save some more of my money because my mom was nice enough to allow me to do that. But I think she's ready for me to get back out. But
I
yeah,
got
that's
you. I know
awesome to
exactly where
hear.
they're feeling. It's good for you too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely gaining that independence, and it gives you the opportunity to kind of like you were saying to start using your own money to navigate your financial freedom for yourself and what that means for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, what eventually got you involved in self-directed IRAs? How did you go from being a real estate investor to discovering this tool for self-directed investing?
Well, that is a kind of an interesting story. I had never really heard about self-directed IRAs, but my father died in 1993, and he died land rich, cash poor, like most real estate investors. And what I found out was is he had a note on a piece of property, and it was in default, and it was at 28%, and it was getting foreclosed on, and my mother didn't know about it and I didn't know about it. And I was helping my mom with my dad's estate at the time, being the oldest. And I put an ad in the newspaper saying I needed some money, and this guy answered the call and said, where is it? What do you want to do? And, when are you going to pay me back and what interest rate? So I reduced the interest rate from 28 to 12%. And I told him I'd have the estate done in a year or less. And he said, fine. And we settled on a 12% return. And then when I went to closing, I looked at it and it was a self directed IRA. And I'm going, well, this is very interesting. But I didn't have time to pursue it at that point in time. I borrowed the money and went on and settled the estate, helped my mom get the properties back up and running, and then found a bank that would refinance at this point in time. And I went back to the self directed IRA owner and asked him, I said, if you reduce your rate to 7%, I'll keep my loan with you because the bank will give me 6%, and you'll save me the time and energy and closing costs if we just modify the note for you to 7%. And he said to me flat out, no, my lowest is 12%, and I go up to 18%. Why would I ever want to, cut that in half? And I said, well, you might have to find somebody that your money would be sitting idle. And I said, yeah. He answered, yes, that's right. But there's a lot more people looking to borrow money than there is that are lending it. So it'll get out on the street relatively quick. I said, but then you may have to foreclose on somebody. You've already got almost a year's worth of my payments on time. I've got to be a good borrower. And he said to me, I was hoping you wouldn't make your payments because then I could foreclose and I'd make a fortune, because the loan to value on the property was like, 35 or 40%. And what that did is it made me think that I need to look at things a different way. I always thought foreclosing on someone would be a terrible thing and I'd be losing money, because that's what the banks make it sound like. But a lot of times, if it's an expensive piece of property and the values are up, you're going to make money on it.
Mhm.
So I paid him back and I learned about it. And then I tried to call up and I said, I like what this guy's doing. Can you guys help me do this? And the woman that I was with at the closing said, who are you? And I explained to her, I was the one, I was just in your closing last week. And she says, no, we don't deal with people. You don't have enough money. And I said, well, you don't even know how much I have. She says, please don't call back here again. So, this was, in the mid 90s. Finding information out on self direction was almost impossible. I went back to Cornell and their libraries and asked them to help. They couldn't find anything. I even called the IRS, and all they could give me yeah, I think it's possible, but I don't know where to direct you. So I just did more and more information and went to financial advisors, attorneys, estate planners, bankers, and nobody knew about it. There weren't any books or publications that I could find easily. But since then, with us starting CamaPlan and educating, there's a lot more information out there. More people are writing books about it, and it's become more mainstream at this point in time. But what I liked about it was this money is now tax-free or tax-deferred, depending on the type of IRA you're in. And I was doing real estate, things I understood and I grew up around with my mom and dad. So it was really making passive income twice as good because I didn't have to pay any taxes on it. And when I figured out what the Roth IRAs did, it was a no-brainer. And I tried to put all of my real estate that I purchased in the future that I didn't need to live on in IRAs and 401ks.
So you and Maggie started CamaPlan about, what, 15 years ago, 14, 15 years ago? Somewhere
Yeah,
around there?
we started talking about it in 2003 because I had started working with IRAs. I had a lot of people that wanted me to counsel them on it, and show it to them just because of my network out at the Space Center, where I was at Kennedy Space Center, but I'd fly out to Denver and California and Vandenberg Air Force Base, Huntsville, Alabama. So I had a pretty big network, not to mention the size of my family. So I was helping people do these IRAs, and they said, why don't you do it yourself? Because I would trust you a lot more with the money than these other people that you're using. And so I asked Maggie, and Maggie was doing a lot with software and finances. She graduated from Villanova University and was really smart on that venue. And she said, I'll do all that. You do the sales part of it. And I said, well, there won't be much sales if the people are like me. All you got to do is tell them about it and educate them. And, if they don't like paying taxes, they're going to jump on this. And that's pretty much how it did. We brought it out to the common man. We're investors. We talk to other investors. And if you can get tax-free income for your life and, now 10 years beyond, I still don't see any downfall of this.
Right. And that's one of the great pillars of CamaPlan, I think, is their educational pillar. This is by investors for investors. The fact that we're able to educate investors, and what, 2% of the country really knows about what self-direction is still, even with all the information that's out on the internet and more available to people now. So I think that that's great that that's something that we are able to provide clients. Going on a little bit more about CamaPlan, can you describe some more of the services that our administrator as CamaPlan offers? And what do we do? What is a typical client of CamaPlan? How they can benefit from self-directing their IRAs? You went into it, but if you want to explain a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, basically, as I said, we were investors. We were doing investors. This just made our investing that much better. We didn't have to pay half our taxes out there. We could lend money, like I learned on, and not pay taxes on it. So you could work basically half as much and twice as much by not paying those taxes. So we educate people on self-direction. Jess, you mentioned that the internet has a lot of information out there, and it does for sure, and it's got a lot of erroneous information as well. I've been doing this for, since 1993, so it's almost 25 years or more, 27 years, I think, isn't it? 93, 2003, 2013, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
my counselor would not have told me to go into any field that involved math. So
yeah.
that's all you doing the math on that.
All right. Yeah. So anyway, it was just, I'm probably one of the, I've seen everything in the self-directed world. I've seen people make mistakes. I've seen them get out of mistakes. there's just a lot to learn. So we try to help people do it the right way. A lot of our clients are entrepreneurs, people that take risks, people that believe in themselves. We're firm believers that nobody watches your money better than you do, even if you don't know math. You can watch your money and you can spend it the way you want to do it and invest it the way you want. And I would say the majority of times individuals do better than their financial advisors. If you use a financial advisor as like you do a doctor, as somebody that's going to guide you and give you advice, I think that that's great. But ultimately, you need to be involved in your financial situation, and you can't just leave it up to somebody else without touching it, because there's too many things that change. So we do a lot of education. We attend events. We teach attorneys, accountants, financial planners, realtors with continuing education so that they can understand this subject and that they end up with confidence in us. And even if they don't want to give any advice to these people, they can definitely forward people to us and we'll answer their questions and help them out.
So I think that pretty much nails everything. I know for a fact, and now we're educating even younger people. One of the events that I got to go to earlier this year was we went back to my high school and I spoke to some kids who are involved in the investing club at my high school and talked to them a little bit about the benefits of how they can start making their money work harder for them now, even as a high schooler, which I wish I had when I worked at a grocery store every summer. And then thought I would be making way more money to go out to concerts and things like that, and did not have as much as I thought I would as when I was babysitting and was being paid under the table versus doing all this labor for Uncle Sam to take out my taxes after when my paycheck was coming. So I think that it's awesome that we can even start getting younger people in the door and thinking about how they can start making their money work for them.
Well, yeah, you bring up two good points there. One is the earlier you get into this, the better chances of you killing it are, because you've got the time value of money. You put a little bit of money in now and have it work for the next 40 years. It's going to be way better than putting money in 30 years from now and having it work for 10 years. And most financial planners will agree with that and push it through. The other thing that having self-direction does is, and I'm not saying don't do the stock market and things like that, stocks and bonds and CDs. I'm just saying if you use self-direction, you can definitely have true diversity. You're not tied to just stocks and bonds. You can do alternative investments such as gold and silver, private businesses, private placements, notes, as we discussed, and also actually buy real estate. And, I've bought residential real estate, multifamily residential real estate, commercial office space, industrial space, raw land, all of it kind of, so even if you're in just real estate, you can diversify into different areas. So I'm big on diversification. I think that that's what saves you in times like the COVID. And when I talk to people that are successful, that's one of their tent poles to their financial success is to be well diversified. And I think self-direction is the only way to get that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So you mentioned your parents when you were talking about your background and how they were so influential for you in getting involved in real estate investing. Would you say that your parents or your father specifically was what inspired you to become an entrepreneur, or were there other influences that came along the way as you were becoming a real estate investor, finding your own?
That's a great question. I would say my mom and dad didn't push me in that direction, but after launching launch vehicles, space vehicles, I saw that what money was involved in there, and I knew that I had to show up to work every day to make that money. And when I didn't show up, I didn't make money after those vacation days were used up. So it was interesting that I could make money and not put the time in and not work. I shouldn't say not work, but it would become passive income. As an example, it brought me back to my dad being up on the Jersey Shore and having somebody pick up the checks at the post office box, open the envelope, stamp the back of them, fill out the deposit slip, and put the money in there. And we got to, spend time with my mom and dad, all summer long. Which, when I look back at it, you don't know as a kid that not everybody does that. And then when I'm working, and they tell me 2 weeks, I felt like I was in prison almost. So at that point, I said, I got to find as people call it today, your age, a side hustle. To me, in my age, it was a second job or a second stream of income. So that's kind of what pushed me down the real estate road. And I also, when I was in high school, I worked a lot of construction, and then I had the structural engineering background. So I was good with building buildings and bridges and different things like that as well. So it kind of all just fit together, and I got pushed down that road. I started a family at 28, and that's another big commitment. Had 4 boys, so the commitment never really stopped. And obviously, when you have kids, you have to have more time. We were still launching rockets, so I had to adjust that a little bit so that I could be at their, ball games and plays and different activities that they did. So it all comes back to, people call it financial freedom. I call it time freedom, to do as you want with your time, and you have money. If you have money, you're allowed to do that in this society, and that's kind of the way it was set up. So I like that. I like to help other people get to that situation because I think you have a more meaningful life. And if you look at a lot of the people that work with CamaPlan, they have those same values. They want time and energy and freedom that having passive income, non-taxed or tax deferred, gives them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as someone who went to school with a bunch of fellow actors who all graduated, went to New York and started getting those side hustles, those third, fourth, fifth jobs, and were constantly working and had no time. When I started working here and learning that I could save my money and start putting it into these things to earn passive income and to start getting more of my time back, I can't relate to these people that I went to school with anymore. So I like that CamaPlan has allowed me to have some more of that time freedom. And as I continue to learn more about my own investing, and I'll have even more freedom that hopefully I can share with some of them because they're really out there doing too much hustling, I would say. So I think that that's really interesting.
Yeah, if you have that capability, and I know you like acting and in the arts, um, when you have more time to spend on there, then you can even make it even more successful. And if you have the income behind you to give you that time, it's just a winning combination.
Right, exactly. It's that thing where I'm almost like, I get it, you're working these jobs, and it's admirable that these people are working so hard to make their dreams a reality, but at the same time, aren't you tired? How are you gonna do in your audition? I think that that's if you're trying to run from your second job to your third job and then make it in time for your audition. So I think that being able to give yourself that time value in addition to that monetary value in your life is an important winning combination. I agree with you.
Yeah, and I don't know that anybody taught you that in school. I look back on, when I was in school, and I can't point to a class that taught me that. They all taught me how to be a good corporate employee and not necessarily financially independent.
Yeah, exactly. I know so much about parallelograms, but not enough about investing and how to make my money work for me, or how to even diversify. I didn't even know you diversifying a portfolio was important until I was out of college. So I think that education is definitely in need of more classes like that, or at least more mainstream classes like that. I know there are some that are electives, like the kids that I spoke to at the high school, they were all in an investing club. But for someone like me who was invested in doing the plays, where else was I going to find that outlet?
Yeah, a lot of things that I think the parents need to do, or at least we teach our clients to do, is what they've learned at CamaPlan and what they're doing at CamaPlan, they should pass on to their family members, build their legacy, at least tell their kids about it, right? And if they're young enough, some of them go back and tell their parents about it. So we're big on family, and we're big on making, or helping people realize their financial independence and their success.
Yeah. And I think that that's important. That's huge. Being able to go and bring it home to the dinner table. And that's what we hope some of those kids were able to do when we went and spoke at the high school. So going on to back to your early endeavors as an investor, Carl, can you talk some more about some of your early successes, or failures that you had as an investor, or some of the challenges or frustrations? And on the opposite side, some of the successes and rewards that you now experience as an investor and an entrepreneur, you may have learned from those early successes and failures.
Well, for people that don't know me, I'm very, very conservative. I look at all of the things that can happen. My father told me, hope for the best, plan for the worst. So I do that in my real estate and pretty much a lot of things in my life. So, the first thing I did is I bought a piece of property after I graduated and paid off my college loans in 1979 or 80, I can't remember, and that I still own today. I'm a buy and hold type of person. And I bought this property. I built a home on it. I lived there. I bought the property next to it with an option. I didn't have any money. I didn't have very good credit when I graduated college, just because I didn't have credit. They didn't give credit cards out like they do to college kids today back then. So what I did is I did an owner financing on a lot that was there, and it turned out it was 2 blocks from the ocean. I put an option on the one right next door to it. Later, I bought that because the house was there. It was nice. It was growing, and it created a nice yard for the kids. I still own that house today. It's a rental property. And so I go back to that. I bought a couple of other pieces of land. I like to buy land when I can get a good deal on it. And the reason I do that is because when there are recessions and people are out of work, the price of materials and the price of labor goes down. So I can build more cheaply. And then and by the time I'm finished, usually we're coming out of the recession, and I've got a nice piece of property that increases in value because of the appreciation. So that's just one of the strategies I used to help me with things. At one point in my career, I think I got too big for my britches, and I didn't do all my own due diligence on property, and I farmed it out to some other people. And as a result, I did lose some money, probably a couple 100,000 on a deal that went bankrupt in the 2008 and 9 timeframe, because there was a lot of deferred maintenance that wasn't done on the building, plus the value of the building dropped. Nobody would refinance it. Tenants were moving out. There wasn't any money to fix it up, etc. So everybody asks me, well, is there risk in real estate? And yes, there's risk in real estate. Somebody says, so why don't you go in the stock market? And I said, well, the stock market's risky for me. The only people who the stock market isn't risky for are the stockbrokers who take my money and make their money whether I win or lose. So I never really liked that. I read a book on blackjack I think all of it's a gamble, but I believe risk is associated with knowledge or lack of knowledge. I guess good luck is knowing stuff, bad luck is, not knowing. So, again, just growing up around my mom and dad, I learned a lot about real estate. I didn't learn a lot about stocks and bonds. I have a cousin that's really good at them, and I tell people, invest in what you know and understand. So, from that aspect, I don't care what you've done in your life, you have some successes and you have some failures. Another one that was bad was I had a loan out on a property. I sold the property, took back some of the paper, was making a nice interest rate on it. The guy lost his job, gave me back the property, but in the mortgage paperwork, it said he's responsible for paying the taxes, and he hadn't paid the taxes for 3 years. So when he gave me back the property, I owed taxes for 3 years. But it was my fault for not having him, right in the contract. It said send us a receipt showing the taxes were paid. He never sent it, and I never asked for it, and I ended up paying the price. So follow what your paperwork says and don't be too cavalier about it. Have a nice process in place. That's what saves you money. I don't think you should do real estate as a hobby. I think you should definitely set it up like it's a business, whether it's one piece of property or 1,000 pieces.
Yeah. And then can you tell us some more about some of your deal strategies? So, what makes for you a good or a bad deal? You have touched on it with this, but do you have specific strategies when you go into making a deal that you use for like use across the board universally, or does it really depend on the investment?
Well, I'm not one of these people that set it and forget it because there's too many things that change, okay? And the value of money changes, technology changes. As an example, when I was, in high school, gas was 19 cents a gallon. And when I first started in real estate, I said every deal I've got to make 15,000 on. That was a year's salary in 1980. And now my number is if I'm going to get involved in a deal, I want to make $500,000. So the idea is still there. The numbers change based on the value of the dollar, the value of homes, the value of everything around us. So I still, I think you should go into every investment saying how much, is my time worth and how much do I want to spend on this? As an example, I was working with a woman who inherited this property, her and her brother was actually living in it. It was her mother's property. The brother was a drug addict, but she didn't want to throw him out. And, we cut the grass for him because the city was on there. I had my kids run down and cut the grass. And, I'd been working with her probably for 9 months. She didn't know what to do with it, but she had to get the stuff, cleared up from the death of her mother, etc. So I helped her, and she said she would give me the first shot at it. And she got it cleared up. I was out painting a property. She called me. This is before cell phones were, real big, but I didn't get I got the message, I think, Friday night, and I said I'd call her on Monday, because I was out, painting. And she sold the place, on Saturday. And she said, you never called me back. And, I had to get the money. And I just kind of go, at that point, I said, all right, I'm never going to be painting a place again because now I was, at that point, it was like $10 an hour painting job. I was saving money on another piece of property, but I lost this deal. So I try to look at what my time is worth. And if I can get a good deal, I should spend my time getting the good deals and paying the tradespeople to fix them up because my expertise is finding the deals, and it pays way more than it does for me to have a hammer or a paintbrush in my hand. I even carry a roll of duct tape in my trunk. So if I walk into a building, I tape my hands together because I don't want to pick up a broom or a screwdriver and, and tighten something in because I'll get preoccupied and that's not where I want my brain to be. So I think you've got to look at what job you have to do to make your business there and what you can give other people to do and where that break in the money really comes up to. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah, it makes sense. I like going back to the idea that you really place a lot of value on time as an investment. Would you say that that's something that's been a personal philosophy of yours? I can glean that much from based on what you're telling me now, but when did that first hit you that, like, time really needs to be just as much of an investment as anything else? Was it when you started your family or
Well, I mean, it first started when they told me I had 2 weeks of vacation. That was just a rude awakening, and I almost lost my job, because I'd used my 2 weeks up and I didn't have vacation, so I had to take some non-paid time off or something like that. And at that point, I said, I don't know that this is going to work. I like launching rockets; it's fun, but I got to make some money too, and I got to have some time to live my life. And then, of course, when you get married and have your kids and you're buying houses and cars, you're making money commitments as well as time commitments. And there just isn't enough time in a day. One of the other things my father told me is I can be anything I want to be. I just can't be everything I want to be. So you are going to have to make decisions on how you spend your time and what kind of rewards you want on the back end of that.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for elaborating on that for me. So, another question that I wonder when I talk to, people like you or Maggie or anybody who's seen a lot of success in their life is what characteristics do you think make up a successful investor? What makes a successful investor and what are the biggest pitfalls that investors should avoid to be the best version of themselves or to be the most successful?
That's a really good question. I can tell you that I make money the old fashioned way. I work for it. I don't know, some of these guys, like Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg. I'm not saying they don't work for it, but they've got some really good brains and they created some really good systems in place. But then there's also the people that have nice patents in chemistry. There's also, people who make inventions like the pet rock, which you probably don't even remember.
No, I don't I mean, I'm thinking of pet rocks in my backyard, but I don't know if it's the same. Maybe I should have patented that.
Yeah, no, that's what I said too, Well, there's a couple of things out there in life that I've just never believed. I grew up drinking out of a hose, connected to the house. And then when they started bottling water, it was kind of like, well, who's ever going to pay for bottled water? It's a dime a bottle. And I said, these guys are going to go out of business. But, I see it go on. And, at one point somebody said, we're going to close the United States Patent Office. We've invented everything by now. And, and I don't care where you are. There's artists out there that sell their paintings, that are very good. There's writers, there's scientists, there's teachers that I admire. So I don't care what walk of life you're in, there are the people that are at the top percentage of that. And I think they have a good life and I think they're doing what they love to do. So I think that someone has to go down that road and start figuring out what you're going to be good at and where it's going to be. And I wish I could have told you that I was going to be a real estate investor when I grew up, in the third grade, but I didn't. I just kind of gravitated to it because it was something I learned and something I knew, and it could make me passive income while I was doing something else that I liked, and launching rockets I liked, and it also paid the bills, but it also had some constraints to it with my time. I was basically trading my time for their money. Now I'll trade my money for some time. I'll take a plane instead of drive, as an example.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a lot of hitting the pavement, hitting the stones yourself. And I think that that's very valuable as someone who would like to learn more about, what characteristics can I utilize to make myself, to set myself up for the most success in life. So I think that that's really valuable information to hear from, especially someone who's in a different part of her journey, but definitely starting to learn.
If you're in that journey, I always tell people, especially when you graduate college or you're in you're in college, you're basically a blank sheet of paper, and you can almost do anything that you want. You just can't do everything. So you need to sit down and look at the things that you would like to do and kind of make a plan, because even a plan that's poorly implemented is better than no plan at all in most cases. So that's what I would say most successful people do, is they have a plan. They might get pushed down a certain road to begin with, but at some point they all make plans, they make lists and they cross things off.
So something I was just thinking about as you were talking during the last question, Carl, and forgive me if this sounds like very out of left field, but I'm thinking about like Instagram influencers now and personal branding that people do. Like I see a lot of, like I said, I graduated with a lot of theater majors and now they're promoting their own websites and trying to brand themselves in a way. And I see this a lot with social media now and Twitter stars and TikTok. I don't understand what TikTok is, but from what I know, people dance and make funny 30-second videos and have become famous from it. And I think it all comes back down to branding. So as a business owner, CamaPlan is a brand, and you as a person, when you speak at events and things like that, I think you've become, in a way, like your own personal brand. And I'm just wondering, are there certain things when you're thinking of your own personal branding, like that you try to give off when you're speaking at events or when you're meeting new investors or talking with people on the phone or things like that? Anything that you try to rub off on them as like, hey, these are the three things I value most in myself as an investor and as someone, like this is the way I project myself out to the universe. I don't know if that's a fully formed question, but it was just something I was thinking about because my cousin makes money dancing on Instagram and like just doing hip hop videos on Instagram. And I'm like, I wish I had that when I was when I was your age. I can't dance, but
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can't dance. I heard that song. I feel that those things are good. I can't get into that world at all because I don't understand it. I think the technologies have changed. And that's why I say I go back to, the old fashioned way. I think being truthful and honest in your dealings with people. They may not necessarily like you, but at least you're truthful and honest with them and they respect that. And then I also believe in transparency, and I want people to feel good that work with us. And I don't want to work with people that don't feel good with us. And I think that's probably some of the strong points of, CamaPlan success. We're here, we're doing this job, we've set it up the way we would like to be treated, and that's kind of our branding. I would say Maggie and I, being raised in the same family, tell the truth. It is what it is. Not everybody's going to love you. As long as you're respected and you're working from a place of knowledge and transparency, I think it goes a long way in
yeah, I would
business.
definitely say
And
Cam is a company
that's
with a lot of integrity. That's something that I've noticed when we work with other companies or we do webinars or events with other companies as well as, or we talk about even in marketing, we talk about reviews and customer reviews and things like that. And it's a company's integrity is such an important part of their branding, I think, and being transparent and honest is huge. I think for as a person or and as a company.
plus you're going to see a lot of, we have thousands of clients, so you're going to see them, and it's not only with our clients, but it's with our employees. And Jess, working with us, it's definitely a family environment. People care about everybody in the office. there's a lot of respect for everybody in the office, and everybody has certain tools or certain skills that they're good at. And we like to take advantage of those, and maybe take advantage or utilize those, I think is probably a better word for it. And I think that that's good. I mean, I do presentations, and a lot of people think I'm overbearing. And Maggie shows up, and I mean, all of the women, I mean, there might be one or two women in my line. All the men come on my side, and all the women go to Maggie's side. And I said, I don't know. I guess they said, well, you're a little scary, Carl. So it is what it is. We can fix a little bit of it, but just be honest and truthful and fair, and it goes a
Right,
long
and I
way.
could say, I don't think you're scary. I've worked with some scary people before, and I think you're very approachable, but I can to each their own, but I don't think you're scary. Yeah. So yeah, but thanks for answering that. I was just thinking of it, and it just as you were talking about the previous question, it just kind of came to mind. I was like, I'm thinking about I've just heard personal branding so much lately, in social media and just in marketing in general, and I think that it's great that CamaPlan does have those pillars of honesty, integrity, and transparency, and that it does bleed into our workforce and our personnel here. I think you guys are the only group of people that I would willingly invite to my house for a karaoke party, so that says a lot. Uh, Carl, we'll have to sing a chilling duet when COVID-19 is long gone. We'll get the whole room crying. That's no problem. That's no problem. I always say that, it takes one duet to get the party going, like one very confident duet. So that could be us. So to the final stretch of questions here. The thing that we're trying to ask every guest that comes onto the podcast is what would you say your keys to building wealth and unlocking your financial freedom are? It doesn't necessarily have to be a financial key, but just something that's informed the way you personally, Carl Fischer, look at success.
Well, first of all, I'm very grateful for what I have. I'm very grateful for what my parents gave me. And I like to give back to those that are less fortunate than I am. So there is, I think one of the things is you do have to be grateful. I think the more people that you help, I think the bigger your network is. I think if you have a big network, you can handle a lot of problems and a lot of opportunities that come your way. Because one thing, as we've been talking right along, it's time is the issue. And if you have to do everything yourself, and I mean, and I'm good at a lot of things, but if I have to do everything at myself, then I'm not going to get as much done. I like to use the word, I can help a lot of people, but I can only carry one person. Um, so you don't want to ever get into that situation where, we'll take an example of building a house. If I've got to dig the ditches and pour the concrete and lay the block and do the plumbing and the electric and this, I'm only going to be able to get, one house done in a year. If I go out and I employ these tradespeople, engineers and architects, I can build a subdivision in that same time frame. So I think again, you got to intertwine the time and the money and living your life to being a success. And I think you want to do something that you like and that you understand, and something that you can live with. I mean, there's some people, and I envied them. They knew, in fourth grade, they wanted to be a doctor, and every single thing they did in grade school, high school, and college was to be a doctor. I never had that. I never knew what I wanted to be, until I ended up getting a chance to launch rockets. I said, yeah, that's great. That's probably what I really would, if I had to pick something, that would be what I wanted to do. And I just happened to graduate, at the time they were starting the shuttle program. So it was very fortunate for me to get into that world, and I loved it, and I thought it was fun, and I would have stayed in it. my whole life if they hadn't gotten away from manned spaceflight, which they're about to start up again today.
Yeah, which is very cool. I'm really excited. I was like, this falls on a perfect day to talk to you about, from rocket launching to launching an entrepreneurial career is what perfect timing that is.
Yeah, we were very lucky with that. See,
Yeah,
gratitude.
exactly.
Not that I had anything to do with picking the
Yeah.
day, but
It's in these times I find that finding anything to be grateful for is important and it's something to cling on to. It's helpful to keep you moving forward even in times of just emotional crisis. So letting that be something that's been a financial key for you is, I think, awesome.
I think it helps everybody, you just become more of a positive person if you count all the good things in life versus focusing on the bad things in
Yeah,
life.
exactly. I'm a big Hunger Games fan, and one of my favorite little tidbits from the end of that book series is the idea that in order to continue to move forward after times of tragedy and things like that, the main character starts making a list of all the good she's seen people do. And I think that that's something I want to start doing now even. So I think that I think it's a great pillar of personal wealth to hold on to be able to be grateful for the things you have. Just be grateful for the things that you see around you.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, if you do that, Jess, and you keep that for 20 years, that book will be
Yeah,
priceless,
I bet. Yeah.
right? If you just write those things down, it'll be
Oh,
priceless. I promise
yeah,
you
I
that.
bet. Maybe I think I'm going to start doing that today, starting with our great podcast today.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, Carl, thank you so much again for joining us today. I really appreciate learning from you every time we talk, and I look forward to learning even more from you in future episodes as we speak to more investors and talk again. And the last question I really have is basically how can people reach you? Do you have a website or any social media that listeners can use to get in touch with you?
CamaPlan.com, CamaPlan.com is the best way to reach our website. That website has a lot of information on it. You can write into info@CamaPlan.com and you can call us at 215-283-2868, 215-283-2868. And if someone on our staff can't answer your questions and you need to get to me, thank them and ask them to set up an appointment. And we will set up an appointment so that you can talk to me in person. That is one of the things that I treasure at our company. Again, as far as the social media, we're out there. I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not going to be showing you what I'm eating every day, uh, or or dancing.
Fair enough.
Probably not dancing.
No one needs to see me dance either. I get
Yeah,
it.
well, right. So it's so let's go back to the basics. We'll do a phone call or we'll help answer any questions that people have. But I think those ways are easy. Info@CamaPlan.com, CamaPlan.com for the website, and 866-559-4430 is an 800 number or toll-free number, 866-559-4430. And if you can't get a hold of us that way, put a letter in the mail to our address in Ambler.
All right. Great. Thanks, Carl. I appreciate you again coming on and talking with me. And I hope you enjoy the rocket launch today.
I appreciate that. As long as it goes, the weather's a little iffy, but
Yeah.
I've got my fingers crossed.
Same here. Well, thanks again. I really do appreciate it. It's always a pleasure getting to talk to you. And again, you're very fun to talk to. You're not scary.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jessica. I
Of
really
course.
appreciate
Thanks,
the time
Carl.
and energy.
Thank you. So, everybody, tune in next week if you want to hear more from some experts who have paved their roads to financial freedom, or call CamaPlan today to learn some more about how you can start taking control of your future wealth. Have a good night.